Microsoft is trying to they're trying to emulate what Steam is doing, right? But they're coming at it with a pre-existing crowd of people with a different culture around how they think about their games. And so Microsoft has been trying to chip away at this idea of Xbox is no longer a thing. It's a game library.
Butterscotch shenanigans.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 547 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the weekly podcast for indie game developers. I'm Seth and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Matt, the miscellaneous programmer.
I'm Sam, but I'm their taste.
And we are Butterscotch Shenanigans. Today is November 14th, 2020 vibes. Let's get into the news. I'm still weirded out by the intro change. It just feels it's tough,
so quick.
But we're getting there. So we want to talk about one thing today, which is the GameCube.
Yes.
The GameCube.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll talk about this new Steam machine reveal and then kind of how that stacks up against some other things going on in the console space and what that might mean. So let's get in there. So what's the news? The news is, as of a few days ago, the Valve announced the Steam machine, which is a cube-shaped, we'll call it a console, because it's...
You should call it a PC.
It's
That's
a PC for TV gaming, basically.
Yes.
So it's designed to work well with the Steam controller, but since it's Valve, then you can hook in any controller you want, and it'll just work in the same way that it works for your PC when you play Steam games. And it's essentially, the best way I would describe it is it's like a Steam Deck for your living room.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, which is why they're thinking about it also in console terms, right? Because essentially, I mean, if you think about a console also kind of is supposed to be like a computer in your living room, right? For playing games. It's the same kind of idea. And so what's interesting about this is that Valve tried this a couple of years ago, about almost 10 years ago, I think, and couldn't get it to go. And a big part of that was that they didn't have a good setup for handling basically the operating system the way they wanted to. So it was previously, and it is still, run on Linux, which, spoiler alert, most devs don't make builds for Linux, right? Because it's a tiny, tiny proportion of the market. No one bothers. It's like a tremendous pain. But Valve cracked it with regards to being able to play a PC build, like a Windows PC build of a game, on a Linux machine. And the first question you should ask if you're an indie dev is why would they use Linux instead of Windows? And it's because Linux is free. And open source.
You don't have to pay $100 per license fee. So especially when you're in that space, right? Because $100 on top of anything that you're buying, and when you're building a PC, it's the same deal. If you're building your own PC, if you're buying one from a OEM, right? $100 of that.
Yeah. So Steam Deck is $500.
Yep.
Make it $600 if it runs Windows natively. You know?
Yeah. And then you also don't have.
But it's that. But it's also that Microsoft, you want to be able to control what's going on with your operating system if you can. Because a console is coupled to the operating system of the device, right? The hardware is the hardware relates to the system is really important. And if you put that on a Windows thing, your Windows update's going to roll out at random, and Microsoft will just break something because they don't know and don't care what any specific device is doing, especially modern Windows, which will just break everybody's shit.
Yeah, because 30% of all their new code is written by AI. They bragged right as they deployed several updates that broke it.
Yeah, so it's important to note then that from a business standpoint, any person who would be entering console space these days would need to either be running it on Android. So we saw those years ago with the Ouya, Game Stick, all these mini, what do they call them? Mini consoles, or there's some name for them.
Yeah. They all died, so we all forgot what they were called.
Yeah, but they're all on Android, so it's kind of the same idea. Take an open system so that you can modify it however you need. And then Linux is your other option, right, for doing this kind of development. So the thing is that back then they couldn't get it to fully work. It was janky as hell, like the Steam machine.
It was also
you couldn't play much on it.
But also the way that Steam enters hardware spaces is always very experimental. They don't go all in the way that, and it's basically, they're a private company. This is we're constantly talking about how great it is to be a company that isn't It doesn't have shareholders to answer to, or public shareholders to answer to. Because when you get to do things like, I'm going to spend literally $100 million trying this and see what happens. And so Valve as a company will, every few years, they'll just like do and it's a big experiment. It's still very expensive, right? But they do a big experiment where if it fails, they don't care. They're taking 30% of everybody's money. They got infinite money. They can do whatever they want. And they don't have any shareholders who are like, ooh, the line didn't go up this quarter, right? And so...
Well, and the failure, when you have a specific outcome that you need to have happen, you only think about things in terms of success and failure.
Yep.
So it's like, oh, did this thing move 10 million units? Right. If not, it was a failure. But really, you learned a lot from building that thing and deploying it and whatever.
Yeah, because Valve is a software company. They started making games and then making, a web software to deliver games. And they're foray into hardware. Like, hardware is it's way more difficult than software. Infinitely more difficult than software to deal with hardware.
It's not even comparable.
No, it's not.
In terms of like what is required. It's just a different skill set. If you got to manufacture things and
different everything, right?
Yeah,
So I think what's interesting though is like, Adam, to your point, is failure is really only like a true failure if you stop now.
Yeah,
and Valve has been in the unique position because, like I said, they take 30% of everybody's money, including ours. That they don't, whatever they're doing besides running Steam, can just be done with a very long term view of, we're just going to learn some stuff here. It might not work exactly, but we think this is like our best shot at it. And then
they're the opposite of big tech, right? Like big tech is move fast and break things, and Valve is like, oh, we're going to move slow and try to do things well, right? And you can feel that too. Like anytime I've gotten a piece of Steam hardware, even though I knew it was an experiment they were doing, it felt good. It worked, right? Like, which is something you can't count on for most companies today.
So they basically they came up with this Steam machine again, V2, and I do like, for me, like just on the design side of it, just the aesthetic of it, I do think there's something about objects that have some nostalgia to them.
Yep.
And they did. I don't know if they did it on purpose. I feel like they probably did, but like they nailed it in terms of like it's like small and it looks like a GameCube, which is why people are calling it the GameCube. But like there's something about the aesthetics of it that are just, it's very tidy but very pleasing. It feels like this old piece of tech that a lot of people enjoy a lot.
But it's also very PC, right? Because it's like it doesn't have any LEDs. Curves. It's just a square chunk of what looks like a metal frame, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like it's designed because they know people are going to want to decorate it and do stuff to it, right? Like it's designed to be a thing that is like the center of a thing that like makes you, I don't know, it makes you like feel like you're a gamer when you look at it versus like having, cutesy stuff with lots of curves. I'm thinking about the PlayStation, which is like, what even is the PS? Is it, what are we on 5? Whatever that one is.
5, yeah.
It's like a vase,
Yeah, it looks like a vase, yeah.
Yeah, it seems just like, no, this is a PC.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a rectangle.
So I do think what's interesting though is that is that simultaneously with this, we've been seeing Xbox trying to kind of also do the same thing, but in the other direction. So Xbox's strategy recently has been kind of summed up by that like marketing campaign of everything's an Xbox, right?
Yeah.
Which is, if you think about it, it's kind of like what is happening here with Steam in a way, which is like Steam previously is kind of, it's like PC locked. Then it's like, okay, yeah, you got a Steam Deck, which is kind of like a Switch. But you're still not playing on like a big TV unless you're doing streaming. Like basically the setup is just annoying. And then now they're like, oh, they're making a play for this kind of big TV living room space. And so one of the things that we've been seeing a lot and like just the chatter about this is like how these two strategies compare. And I think it's just fascinating from like a goodwill perspective, from a business perspective, to look at like, why is it that like everyone's so excited about Steam being like, here's a console, like here's a GameCube. But when Xbox is like, we're going to make it so you can play your games, your Xbox games on like your phone or whatever else, that everyone's like, I'm confused and I don't like this. Like what's the difference?
I think part of it is a framing thing and part of it is a trust thing. So on the framing side, now think about it as these two entities are coming at this problem from opposite directions and they're moving in opposite directions. So Steam started as a patching client for Half-Life 2. So if you guys remember back in 2004, Half-Life 2 comes out, and you'd boot it up, and you would install this thing called Steam, which was literally just a gray window that was just like
Yep.
updating Half-Life 2, powered by Steam. You're just like,
That was it.
okay. And then the orange box comes with Team Fortress and Portal and Half-Life 2, right? Those three games, I think.
Yep.
And
Counter-Strike.
And Counter-Strike probably. Yeah.
there.
It's been a while, but like
Yep.
we lived through it. But it was so.
Yeah,
it was
it was
like,
just the orange box was like it was a pivotal moment in the history of PC gaming. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then all these games are hooked up to Steam to receive
Mhm.
updates and stuff like that. And then pretty soon, Steam has like a launcher that you can like open up to play your games on, and then other games started appearing on Steam very slowly, right? And so it just like Steam was just like it wasn't a thing, it wasn't like a device, it was just like a
sort of
launching
like-
platform to play your games on.
It's
a
like
game
when you
library,
hear
know?
when you hear people who aren't familiar with video games refer to consoles as a Nintendo. You know, oh, do you have that Nintendo? Are you playing on that
Yeah,
Nintendo?
Or
And it's
all
like,
games
it's not
with Mario. You know,
Right,
go
it's like
play
it's not-
Mario.
just platform wise. It's just not what's happening
Yeah.
here. you know?
So it's intuitive when like the Steam Deck comes out and somebody's like, "Oh yeah, like you can play all the games from your Steam library on the Steam Deck, and it hooks up to Steam, and so it's a handheld gaming device you can play all your Steam games on." Like,
Mhm.
Great, I get it, right?
Right, because you've already probably, if you've been on Steam for any amount of time, years,
You've changed computers.
You've
and
changed computers, yeah.
You've moved games around and stuff like that.
Steam is just a place to get your games.
Steam
onto
is
stuff.
it's a pile of software.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but even the part where it becomes like more integrated with the hardware, in the case of like the Steam Deck or the Steam Machine, right? People are used to, because Steam over the years has made its interface more and more operating system like, and they have like big
Yes.
picture mode, and they have all these like, so they've made it feel
More
more and
console
more
friendly,
like that.
basically.
Yeah, more
Yeah.
console
Yeah.
friendly, and they made it so that because so that's true, but also historically, everybody who's on Steam, or at least almost everybody who's on Steam, started first by having a PC
Yes.
and putting Steam on it, right? So like in my mind, when I look at the Steam Machine or the Steam Deck, even, I'm like, this is a piece of hardware that Steam is on. I don't think of it as
Right.
the
Yes.
same interchangeable versus like Xbox, which is to me,
A box. It's a piece
it's
of hardware.
one thing.
It's a physical
It's
object.
one,
Yeah.
it's all fully integrated in a way that makes it so that if you want to try to now decouple those in some way, it doesn't feel like it makes any sense.
Right. It's like if you said, if you take any other object that exists, that's like a real thing. If you're like, everything's a tree now, everyone's like, that's
Yeah.
very confusing. I don't know what you mean
And
by that.
this is the Xbox problem, which is Xbox started as a thing. So
Mhm.
it started as a box with a big fat X on it.
Yes. Yes.
I kind of love the old Xbox
old design was
like
dope.
design. The controller was fat. It was just like a big
Mhm.
fat thing. But then the Xbox itself, it was just like a little rectangular thing, and it had a big X across the top. So you're like, okay, that is an Xbox.
Yeah.
Right?
You could look at it and you you describe it as such. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a box with an X on it. Pretty
and
fucking
so
easy
then-
to read.
Yeah, so then the years go by and you got your Xbox 360, which, when you see it, you turn 360 degrees and walk away. That old
Yep.
that old rage bait joke, because the people are like, you can't, that's the wrong number of degrees. Anyways.
Perfect.
And then you had then we got like, up to now we have the Xbox Series X.
Series
or
X and S. Yeah. They're all
So,
boxes.
they're just,
literally.
they're all pieces of hardware. And then kind of on like the software side, Microsoft has basically been trying to land where Steam is by making Xbox more and more digital. And I do remember in like the early 2010s when the Xbox One came out, people were pissed because Microsoft was like, "Hey, what if like you had a digital game library on Xbox, and instead of buying DVD or CDs of the game, you just paid us through the digital store, and it's just linked to your Xbox account."
Mhm.
And I don't know if you guys remember how much outrage there was about this.
Oh, yeah,
because,
of course.
because
Wasn't there an option for not having a disk drive? Was that
Yeah.
at present?
Yeah,
that might have come at
Or
because
at
shortly
some
after.
point.
basically-
They had an option where you could be like, or you could get it $100 cheaper if you don't even have a disk
Yeah.
drive.
Yeah, because even back then, Microsoft was looking at what was happening with Steam, and they were like, "Holy shit!" Like
Imagine if we didn't have to sell these fucking boxes.
Imagine if we'd have to worry about that, but also
Imagine taking 30% of everyone's money without having to also sell hardware, right?
Yeah.
yes, and getting rid of the used games market, right?
Yeah.
So they're like if anybody wants a game,
Yep.
we always get a cut. Microsoft always gets a cut instead of GameStop getting a cut or whatever, right? So they saw that even 15 years ago with the Xbox One, and they were like, we got to get in on this. And the culture of people buying Steam games is people are just like, oh, it's so convenient. Great.
Yep.
And that was it. But there's a different culture on console, which was like games are things that you can hold.
Mm-hmm.
And the Xbox is a thing that I put my game into. You know?
Mm-hmm.
But it's also
It was very physical.
It was also designed because that physicality and that it being one thing was really strongly reinforced by the exclusivity part, right? Because it's like an Xbox has Xbox games that can only be played on Xbox, right?
Right.
Yes.
And
Like
it's in
Halo,
competition with it's on competition with PlayStation, which can only play PlayStation games on a PlayStation, right? Like they had this exclusivity set up that really just so strongly reinforced the idea that like an Xbox is its own fully integrated thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so because even like I know that I can play Xbox games on PC technically, right? Some of them, if I go through, but like when I do Xbox stuff on my PC, it feels like shit.
Well,
It feels terrible.
This is kind of the weird part is like Microsoft is trying to they're trying to emulate what Steam is doing, right? But they're coming at it with a pre-existing crowd of people with a different culture around how they think about their games.
Yes.
And so Microsoft has been trying to chip away at this idea of like Xbox is no longer a thing. It's a game library.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but they won't come out and say that though, because if they would just say that, that would make it pretty clear what they're doing, and everybody could be like, okay, we might not like it, we might not like whatever, but we know what you're doing. But they won't say that. They just have these vague ass aphorisms.
And so there was an
everything's
interview.
an Xbox.
There was an interview on Mashable with the president of Xbox, Sarah Bond, who was talking about the next Xbox console, and no matter what question she was asked about it, her answer was just, it's going to be a premium experience. So she wouldn't say anything about what the next device was, and instead she would always pivot over to just talking about how Xbox is an experience that goes with you no matter what device you're on, right? If you're on your PC, Xbox is on there. If you're on your laptop, Xbox is on there. If you're on your Xbox is on there. And then they got these new handhelds like the Republic of Gaming Xbox Ally handhelds. And so it's confusing because again, like there's a long-standing 25-year framing here of like Xbox is a thing and Steam is a platform. Right?
Yep.
And now and it's easy to think about like, oh, there's this new Steam machine that has Steam on. It's weird to say like, oh, my laptop has Xbox on it because it's just a tough thing to wrap your mind around. But it's really no different than Steam. It's just
also because
Steam.
they've moved away from being like just exclusive. Because for a while, like consoles were just literally exclusive. Like if you're on a console, that's where that game is, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
And we're a long ways away from that being the case.
The interesting note, I think, for like on the dev side, that I want to bring up, which is that experientially dealing with Steam, dealing with Microsoft. Again, we've shipped games on all these platforms at this point, so dealing with them is very, very different because of a couple of baseline like facts about how they operate, right? So one is, at Adam's point, like given that consoles are harder space to get into for years, and also because it was hardware specific, right? So a literal piece of hardware. Then they had like all the cert processes and stuff like that. We've talked about that on a podcast before, how going through certification to allow your game to exist on an Xbox is its own just massively annoying process, right? It's very expensive. It takes a long time. And you're basically trying to make it, they're trying to make it so that, you're not doing stuff that is going to break this box that they made, right? You're not like overcalling the various pieces of hardware and stuff like that. So it makes sense to do, but also puts a lot of...
And there's a lot of stuff about like forcing you into using the Xbox cloud saving system.
Yes.
And yeah, there's
this is kind of what it gets at, which is like, so the experientially, working on Steam has been like, Steam's all about PC distribution, right? So when you put your game on there, you know that it's like going to be distributed to people based on like what operating system flags you've set, so it's PC or Mac or Linux build, and then beyond that, when they do stuff like Steam Deck, for example, they don't. When we go to launch like Crashlands or something like that, they don't say. There's no conversation ever with them that's like, hey, if you guys want featuring, if you want to be visible at all in this store, you're going to need to support this new thing that we just made that that has like a small audience, which Steam Deck actually still does have a very small audience. You're going to need to do that. Otherwise, we're not going to like show your shit to people.
I would actually say Valve is the only platform we've worked with that doesn't do hostage negotiations.
Yes.
Where like every other platform will have some new thing that they're trying to push. It might be a new subscription service. It might be some new type of tech. It might be a new storefront. It might be a new like achievements system type of thing or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And they'll say like, oh yeah, like you're bringing your game to our platform. We will make, well, it's almost like it's not a we'll make sure nobody sees it, but it might as well be. It's like if you want anybody to see it, if you want us to actually put it in a promotional spot, do all this extra work to promote this new thing that we are trying to make happen. So essentially they like all these other platforms offload, like they don't trust the players and the developers to just be excited about the new features and opt into them. They force
it. Yeah.
They force it onto the players and the developers.
Yes.
And Valve doesn't really do that.
They don't do that at all. And it's like when we came to Game Pass, example, Levelhead. Part of the deal, because we did a deal to also be on PC Game Pass, right? Part of the deal was that we have to support a Windows, like a UWP Windows build at that time, which
on the Windows
for
store.
tech heads.
Yeah, it was that way to support the Windows store at the Microsoft store. I think it's the Microsoft store, whatever it's called.
Yeah. And it was to be clear, like that build was tremendously problematic to make it all. We couldn't just provide them with a PC build that was like, or basically we couldn't just give them the same exe as our Steam build. It's like it was just a different thing. It had to do its own.
It was a thing called UWP, which again, so this is short for Universal Windows Platform, which was an early attempt by Microsoft to do a Steam, right? Which is like to make a single build of your game that can then migrate from Windows over to Xbox was kind of like the idea of it.
Yeah,
but
except
it didn't really work.
Yeah, except we still had to do a specific Xbox build and a separate.
Well, I think
build.
the root of the problem was that we wanted to be on Xbox because we were already on PC through Steam, and at that time, and I'm pretty sure still today, sure you can play Xbox games on PC. Does anybody? Almost nobody does, relative to people who play on console.
I do on PC Gaming Pass.
Yeah, some people do.
Yeah, but I think the important note is that if you're dealing a deal with Xbox, like the entity now, right? And
Which
you're thinking like, if you're saying like, oh, I want to bring my games to Xbox, there's not you wouldn't be able to get as good of a deal if you're just like, I'm just putting the game on literally the Xbox. There's no keyboard support. There's no touch support, so you can stream it to a fucking phone. There's like none of this stuff happening. They're going to, it's very possible for them to come back and be like, okay, cool, but you're going to need to do X months of also additional work to basically port the game so that it works on PC in order for you to get this deal, right? With Game Pass for Rails. This is part of like what the vibe has been with every other platform. And a big part of it is because their discovery mechanisms are trash, just straight up. So there's no way that, you can go like, you basically can like go viral on Xbox, just on Xbox by like launching your game on it. You have to have support. You have to have marketing support.
And what they're trying to sell, because what does Steam do? Steam sells video games.
Yes.
That's the whole thing, right? These other companies are, and it doesn't compete with anybody really in any meaningful way. These other companies are competing with each other, and they sell hardware and then also video games, right? And so that's part of it too, is that in their efforts to differentiate themselves in the hardware space, then they need to have, because they think about like Apple, like 3D touch, like they have to have something that their competitors don't have. But the only way that something could matter is if the developers on the platform use it, because also these companies don't do a lot of first party content. That's different for Xbox. Xbox does a lot of third party content, but it's all enormous. So the actual volume of that content is pretty low, right? And so, in Xbox's case, their whole thing right now is like, we're trying to compete with basically PlayStation and I guess Steam supposedly by moving into every other space. But again, like that means that they need the games that come in to be doing that. Otherwise they're not competing on that mark. So everybody except for Steam is using the developers on the platform as part of the mechanism they're using to compete with everybody else by, as you're saying, forcing us to do work adopt the latest whatever, which is like an unknown if anybody gives a shit kind of thing.
Spoiler, usually they don't.
They don't, and it usually doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so a big part of, I think, what is then beneficial in Steam's case, in terms of just this move, the attempt at the move, is the fact that, historically, they just haven't been dicks about it. So, like, when they introduced the Steam Deck, we didn't get a note that was like, hey, we know you got that Crashlands update coming out. If you guys want some featuring, I don't know, maybe get it on the Steam Deck, and then we'll talk. That's just not going to happen. It's always going to be opt-in stuff because that makes the most sense. And because they have discoverability with their store, they can know what device you're on, right? Then they can know if you're on the Steam Cube. I guess it's called a Steam Machine.
Steam Machine.
But
it needs to be called the Steam Cube,
right?
Or
the Companion Cube.
Yes.
But yeah, if they can know you're on there, and then they can just serve up games that have themselves flagged like we could be played well on this, right?
Yeah, which they do
is what Steam Deck
so they have Steam Deck verified. They're adding Steam Machine verified, which would be games that have been and like we have griped about the Steam Deck verification process. That
it was and is dumb
for Crush It's 2.
No.
It was a bit janky. Hopefully they have improved some things. But
it's always a 2-tier system, if you're not a Bethesda.
Yeah, you get waved in if you got a game that's guaranteed to make bajillions. So it's like you're gonna have the Steam Machine verified badge on there.
Yep.
But again, like you can just launch a game on Steam, and I think the other kind of important thing is like when you make a PC game for Steam, you've got like the Steam SDK, which can like hook up to achievements. Mm-hmm. That's really all you got to do, right? Like you don't need. So like for Xbox, for example, they have this idea of like a user profile that people who use this, like different people using the same Xbox machine need to be able to like swap between their profiles. And there's all these restrictions and guidelines about how your game has to have interfaces to interact with this user profile system and how it stores data and to like swap between users and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of work to get all that stuff kind of figured out for Levelhead and Crashlands for Xbox. And so like on Steam, there's just no friction with that stuff. Like you just do it, right? So all these barriers are gone. And I kind of to your point about when they announced the Steam Deck, we're just like, oh, sick.
Yeah.
That's great, right?
We're basically, in our minds, we're just like,
we can just put our game on.
If it grows, and also like, if it becomes a viable thing for us to do, then we can do it at that time. It's not, because again, we're a small shop. We don't have excess slush funds where we can be like, let's spend fucking 6 months building something because Steam wants us to, because that will literally like destroy our studio, which is what every other platform requests you to do all the time, right? It's all the time. And it's just super annoying. So I think Steam has the correct approach when it comes to like that software to hardware as an extension of a market that you can opt into as a dev.
Yeah.
But that they're not going to force you to do. But I do think one of the further points there is like cost of this thing, right?
Yeah.
Which we don't know yet.
And that's not the most important thing, but it's
kind of up there,
right?
Yeah.
So we're talking before about like the Apple Vision Pro, right? And it's just like out of the gate, if you're just like, hey, Apple has this augmented reality / VR headset that's a standalone device, is like really high end, and it's like super cool, and they have all kinds of amazing tech in there. Do you want one? Right? And you'd be like, oh, yeah, that sounds sick.
Dope.
You'd be like, all right, it's $3,500. Like, oh my God.
Well, and you have to also own a $1,500 phone.
And you need
or a $3,000
Mac
Mac to actually use it.
Yeah.
If you want to go spend $6,000, then it's truly
like,
amazing.
oh, this is bait. This is trying to get me hooked into the ecosystem.
Right. Well, so cost is super important then when it comes to like, essentially how broad of a market they can possibly hit with this. But I think it's also like an interesting it's interesting point for two reasons. One is like, again, Steam takes 30% of literally everybody's money. So if Sony launches, and this is to me like the most fun bait switch, which is like so many games have come to Steam from Xbox and from PlayStation in the last like couple of years. Nintendo's literally the only one of those like big three who just doesn't push it on Steam. Everybody else has been doing it because
They did
kind of
release
separate
that
markets.
one game on Mario Run on
They do some stuff on-
iOS.
They've had a few mobile games.
They got a couple mobile games, yeah,
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
they've stayed away from the PC side of things. And what's interesting is like Steve's been they sort of dominated the space so hard. These other Xbox and PlayStation come in, and there's they're getting at least 20%, I guess, depending on revenue amounts. But like they're getting a large portion of the money that Sony would otherwise be making off of something like selling God of War or whatever on Steam. And then a few years later, they're like, "P.S. We have a console now," which is just kind of funny to me because it's like it's not like PlayStation games come to Xbox or Game Pass, right? Like they don't.
I
They
don't think so, but I
No,
haven't
they
been
don't.
paying as much
Xbox-
attention. So
Xbox has been caring less because they're trying to be like everything's Xbox. Your PlayStation's Xbox, but like PlayStation stuff doesn't go the other way, And
but also
so-
like taking a game that historically has been on Xbox and making it available on PlayStation doesn't make the PlayStation an Xbox. It's still going to be a standalone PlayStation account
I know,
and
yeah.
different version of the game, and there's no crossover and blah blah blah.
correct, yes.
So,
But I think
Yeah,
these
because you
on-
can't force your way into which is true. Like because Xbox wants to basically force its way into the walled gardens, right? And
Yes.
you can't. They don't have the ability to just do that.
yeah.
right, or they just won't let you, right? Which is great.
Yep.
But like, so when Steam sets up this Steam machine, then it's like, okay, you do have this physical cube. It's going to cost you some money, but importantly, again, Steam takes 30% of everybody's money, so they don't have to sell it. They can sell it at a loss.
Yeah, thin
It's
margin,
like a Kindle.
loss.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they could give them away. I'm convinced you could give away like at least probably 1 million of these fucking things, and Steam would barely notice the dent after like a year or two.
Yeah.
Like, right? Like, there's no way because they take everybody's money all the time. So
Well, and we know that what was it we said? How much profit Valve
they're like-
makes per employee?
it's insane. It's like they're the single most profitable.
Like 3
thing.
million or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So yeah, it's like they could give these fucking things away and it would be fine.
Yeah, because
my
people
bet
are,
is I'm
buying
gonna all
games.
right. Let's place bets. I'm gonna say all right. So the Steam Deck is like $500, but it has a screen.
yes,
It has a controller built in. It has all the hardware. So this thing,
because they're also releasing a new controller, which is basically you would probably get
with
in
the
order to play
box.
stuff on
Yeah.
your.
but if you've already got like an Xbox controller, you can
Yeah.
just use that on your Steam machine because everything's an Xbox. So,
Yeah, my bet is they're going to sell the controller for $70 because that's
Okay.
what an Xbox controller costs. So it's probably going to be just like
Okay.
that,
Yeah,
or a little less.
But how much is the machine?
I bet the machine will be. So they said that it has quote 3 times the horsepower of a Steam Deck.
I thought there were
Okay.
6 of them.
Was it
I
6
saw
times?
seven.
They stacked like 6 of them on top of
Oh,
each other.
6 times. Okay.
6 times, yeah.
But if it's a bigger machine, the engineering doesn't have to be as complex to like fit the hardware in
It
plus
doesn't
a
have
screen
on it. Yeah,
and blah blah
screen's
blah.
a big deal. Yeah.
I bet it's going to be $700.
I think it's
that
going
was
to
also
be.
my bet.
I think it's going to be at or below the Steam Deck price.
You think
You
so?
think it's going to be
I think
500?
it's going to be $500. $500 or less.
It
I
could
think
be.
so.
Here's the thing. I think I want one because
yeah, of course.
because like I have an Xbox, I have an
Mhm.
Xbox, not like a computer with Xbox installed. on
yeah.
it. I have an Xbox that I just don't really use because I
'Cause
have
you
a
don't use
trillion
Steam.
games on Steam.
Yep.
And I really just don't want to buy the same game again for the same price and lose all my progress and start over.
Just to play over there.
Just to play over there, because also like I definitely prefer playing with controller or sorry with keyboard and mouse.
Mhm.
Controllers just historically they don't really click with me. It takes like a lot more work for me to get like the muscle memory down for controllers, and so it's always like kind of a struggle for me to get into a controller based game or like a controller platform. So I'm kind of resistant to buying controller games.
Mhm.
But if I have a game already that I can play with a controller and I want to try it out, that's fine. And so if I get a Steam machine, I'll already have hundreds and hundreds of games that I can go tinker around with without having to spend extra money and be like, oh, actually, I hate this on controller, right? Because I can just go back and play it on my PC.
Well, I mean, my reason being, well, I guess it kind of depends on how they're thinking about the market approach, but I think the question is, who is it for, right? And actually, first and foremost, it's for people who are already on Steam. This isn't. I think that's to me like what the funny thing about like reading some of the journal articles about like Steam becoming a console competitor. I'm like, if you have been playing on Xbox only,
You're not going to get a Steam. Yeah, that's not.
there's no point to getting a Steam Deck, right?
Well, but it's for me. This is basically eating into the market share of like people who have an Xbox in their living room and who have Steam.
Yes, that's that's exactly what I was thinking. It's
on their
making
PC.
It's basically saying it's further insulating that audience from consoles because a lot of people who play PC games also play console games, right?
Yeah.
So if you could say, well, you don't need a console anymore, then that's big. So I think if they're taking more of that approach, then it probably they would just charge like you said, like $700 something like that, right? Where it's like you charge because your audience then you're not trying to like do just massive amounts of distribution there. And also, largely, like Steam is not going to be capable of doing so. People talk about like how challenging it was for like Switch and stuff. I mean, Steam Deck has sold like 4 million units, right? Which is just not very many actually.
So
versus like
numbers,
Switches.
Yeah, by comparison, and again, Steam Deck is an estimate because Valve's a private company and they.
But they're looking at like this is like analysts looking at
Yeah. So this is like it's not Valve coming out and saying we've sold 4 million units. It's people cobbling together data trying to like pinpoint it. We know at least it's quote multiple millions of units as of November 2023. And then people have pieced together stuff since then and roughly landed at maybe 4 million, but also I've seen estimates up to 8 million. So it's like
it's between 2 and 9 because it's not. They didn't say 10 million.
Yeah, it's probably under 10.
It's definitely under 10. Yeah, and it's over 2.
It's probably at least 4. So by comparison, the Switch 2 has sold 10 million units already since its launch. Which has been what, 6 months or something. Yeah, something like that.
But the original Switch, how many of that?
The original Switch has sold about 150 million.
Yeah, that's a whole different
since 2017.
That's crazy.
Right?
Yeah, that's over almost a decade, but it's still just an enormous
lot.
Yeah, it's like 16 million a year, or 17 million a year.
Yeah. So the big thing on the distribution side is you have to know about this, and you go to Steam to get it, right? Or you go through Steam to get it, right? The Valve website, whatever. So it's not you're not going to see them in Walmart. I guess what I'm getting at, which in some ways beneficial because they don't have to deal with again market prices associated with then downstream retailers and stuff like that, right? Making it worth their time to stock the shelves with it. So that could kind of keep the price a little bit down. But I think it just depends on what their play is. If their play is just like we're going to further insulate people who are already on Steam from having to buy a console, which I think is the play. Then
are they doubling down on still the software side where they're like, we want you to be investing in your library. We're giving you even more reasons to not go buy games elsewhere, in which case they can have a thin or negative margin on it, right? Or are they saying, hey, we're also a hardware company. We want to make money on our hardware, right? And historically, like because the prices of stuff that Valve has launched, because they tend to be like really well made premium kinds of hardware,
but they are experimental, which means they tend to be.
They're kind of experimental, so they're a little more expensive because it's like they don't have the same.
They're not going to eat a loss
scale,
on it, right? It doesn't make sense. Yeah,
because they're probably my sense is that they're already kind of operating either at a loss or with very thin margins for like every hardware they've launched, but because of the experimental nature and the relatively smaller batch size and that kind of stuff, things are kind of inherently more expensive. So that also kind of pushes that up. So I hope it's $500 or less. I'd be surprised if it was, given like what it sounds like.
I'd be concerned.
Again, they could afford it. They
could afford it. I agree.
And I think it's like if you think that again, if the average Steam player, if you think that by having that console available, the people who are already on Steam, these are already people who buy games from you, right? You already know that you sold 4 million Steam Decks. So it's like, okay, if you just do the math on it, how many extra games a year does someone have to buy? Because you get 30% to make up for whatever the margin is on it.
Yeah.
Let's say
if you're missing like 30 bucks. The people who are buying this hardware are not the people who play one game, right? That's not.
Yeah.
Because it would be absurd to spend $500 or whatever to play one game. It's like why I haven't bought a Switch 2 yet, because it's like it's got like a game on it that I want. And I'm not going to spend $500 on a Switch just to play the one game that I want. You know, so people are going to do that. It's going to be for people who are buying, who have libraries already, because they buy games.
Yeah, they're purchasers. You know, that's not. Yeah.
Well,
so
and the other weird thing about this is there's no exclusives, right?
Yep.
So like on the Switch, like if you want to play Breath of the Wild, you get that Switch. You
cannot.
You have to buy a Switch, right?
Well, there's no forced exclusives, because a lot of people just only launch on Steam.
Right. But what I'm saying is like there won't be Steam Machine exclusives.
Yeah.
Right. So even if you don't have a Steam Machine, you'll be able to play every Steam Machine game.
Yeah.
And
and you'll keep seeing
deck or whatever, you know,
for the lifetime of the time you're on Steam, which will be your lifetime, advertisements on Steam for the Steam Machine, the latest Steam Machine, the Steam Deck, whatever, right?
Yeah, I think it's a long-term play. It's not a like we're entering the console market. We're a third player now. No,
again, it's back to the Valve's approach of like not forcing things, but just providing things. And if people want them, then you respond to that demand, right? So like if you make the Steam Machine, if it's like, oh yeah, if they end up selling 10 million Steam Machines in the next 3 or 4 years, right? Then it's like, okay, that's pretty good. And that's a good starting point to grow
again,
from.
aside from Nintendo, that probably means that you're at least not selling X number of Xbox or PlayStations because, for next gen, right?
Yeah. And honestly, like, so I got a Steam Deck, not necessarily because I was specifically interested in Steam Deck, but because, I was curious about it, but like we wanted to make sure that Crashlands 2 ran well on it and stuff like that. And so I got one for development purposes. And there's a few things that I played on it, like I played some Baldur's Gate 3 on it and stuff like that. And for me, the downside is like it's just weak. Like it's a Steam
low resolution screen.
Yeah, Steam is a PC gaming platform, and we got this handheld device that's like 800 pixels tall. Like it's not even HD screen. And HD was like decent like 8 years ago. And like this isn't even HD, right? And so like the idea of actually being able to play my Steam library somewhere other than at my computer, with good performance and with the graphics and everything, and not like a shitty frame rate, right? That's what's appealing to me. And so like the Steam Machine just seems very cool.
Yeah, it's for a Steam audience, right? It's not gonna steal something from Xbox or someone from Xbox or PlayStation who's just an Xbox or PlayStation person.
But like that's what I'm saying is like the Steam Deck numbers may not be a very good indicator of what the Steam Machine numbers will be because of people like me, right? Like I did buy a Steam Deck.
Oh, totally.
Right? But like I don't think I would have if I wasn't developing games. But I would buy a Steam Machine regardless, right? So
it's more because like why are you playing games on the go? Like I don't really play. I play games either at my computer or socially, right? And if I'm gonna play games socially, like on a couch, right?
That's interesting. Yeah.
That's kind of sucks with this. Like you can do it technically. You can put their Steam Deck on, mount it, whatever. But it doesn't perform very well, and it's kind of a janky experience,
Yeah.
So having something that is for that purpose, that is talks to the Steam library and is official, because you can cobble those together. You can buy third-party things that basically do that, right?
I mean, you can stream from like a laptop to your TV.
Yeah, but you want a good, like first party, like it's made for this, done really well, and cost effectively kind of experience. And
it's interesting though, is that like there's like the couch co-op market on Steam, of course, is more strange to navigate because it's just personal PCs or Steam Decks now. So it's interesting. If you think maybe 5 years on. If the Steam Machine works, you're probably going to see more of those like family-oriented titles and stuff like that popping up, right? Because you can actually play with your family on a couch.
Yeah, it opens up a new market, right?
It does.
I think that's also a good generational play too, right? Of like, because PC gamers also skew older than compared to other platforms. Having kids and they're introducing their kids to games, and if you're doing that on PC, you're like, oh hey, my child, here is your
sit
PC.
on my lap and wield
sit on my lap while we play
700-piece keyboard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not the right vibe, right? But if you can sit on your couch and pull up a game and like have that be a really good experience, then that's where you get That's
what I
the
did,
good
actually.
generational play because you want to bring those kids in young and have them start their Steam libraries.
Oh yeah, you
when
start
they're 10, you know.
Yeah, you groom those children to what your console like device, and you get them into your industry, and then
You got to indoctrinate them early.
Indoctrinate the
You know?
youth, okay?
It just
Which is
doesn't
good.
work.
I mean, it's
later,
good for
you know?
the long-term health of Butterscotch Shenanigans also. So
Indoctrinate those kids.
course.
yeah,
Get 'em in
because
there.
I am
Go for it,
worried
Steve.
about like I like that because I'm so worried about Roblox, you know, and how Roblox is destroying the future of the games
Yeah,
industry.
we got to get them out of there.
You gotta get them out of Roblox, get them into the Steam machine, and
Yep.
then it'll be.
Then we'll be good. Unless,
Yeah, the
unless
industry can
Roblox
survive.
is on Steam Machine, which it will be because anything can be on Steam Machine. And, oh
Shit.
my God,
Oh no!
Right back where
Roblox
we
is just the
started.
Trojan horse. It just sneaks in
Yep.
everywhere. All right, well, that's all the time we have for this week's episode. We'd like to thank our producers Fat Bard and Sanford Acosta for putting the podcast together, and thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord running. To get more involved in the Butterscotch community, just go to podcast.bscotch.net, where we have links to the Discord, a way for you to donate to support the podcast, and links to the archives. If you haven't yet, head on over to Steam and give How Many Dudes a wish list. It's our upcoming game. And while you're there, go ahead and pick up a copy of Crashlands 2, and Levelhead. And we've also got games on the App Store and Google Play and Xbox and pretty much everywhere. So
Just look for them. I don't know.
Switch.
They're around.
Yeah, just pick them up. We appreciate it. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.